is the sluggo. Slant and go.
Georgia Tech, Florida State.
If you're going to ruin this show by doing research,
Notre Dame.
my dentist is a Notre Dame grad.
Definitely smells.
Casey the Beef Cregan, it's Wednesday, 6:30 my time, 7:30 your time. That means we're here to talk, well, typically football, but not necessarily today. We are going to talk some football on the back end of this, but on the front end, it's a show we've been looking forward to for weeks. We got the one and only Terrence Oglesby showing up in a couple of minutes. He'll be ready to sign on with us and talk some Clemson basketball. But I got a bone to pick with you before we get to that.
Sure.
A couple of weeks ago, I was nice enough to share a picture of the snow we have here in Texas. And I was amazed by the quarter inch we had around here, over here in Texas. And you have to go and show off and get, 31 inches of snow in the last week?
Such a one-upper I am. Yeah, literally overnight pretty much, Sunday or Monday into Tuesday, man. It just didn't stop. My wife and I went out on 4 different occasions to shovel, and every time you come back inside and you just get pissed off because there's just another fresh layer on top of it. 2-lane roads are ended up looking like 1-lane roads because there's nowhere for it to go, so when you're plowing it and shoveling it, it's amazing. It's going to be with us till June. there's so much here. Golly.
Okay, Kevron's checking in. How you doing, Kevron?
Good to see him.
Yeah, good to see Kevron. Yeah, I couldn't do it, Case. I couldn't do it.
Well, be honest with you, Marty, my wife, at one point, the 4th time we were out there shoveling, she said, we won't be in New Jersey next year. So I don't know if we're moving. I don't know if we're going somewhere. I don't know what we're doing, but.
Well, either you're moving or she's moving.
Hopefully we're moving together. I don't know. We'll see.
Can she wait until after football season? Because you're
yes.
The book of beef is
The book of beef
has become a big part of my life. Rob.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks. It's not fun. It's pretty. I told someone today it's pretty for about the first 4 to 6 inches. It looks really nice coming down. You catch the snowflakes and it's great. My kid loves it. He's running around like crazy, but it's so high you can lose him, literally. He's maybe 3 feet tall, and it's crazy, man. It's brutal. It stopped today.
Well, I'll get the other side of that, right? Come talk to me in July or August, and it'll be like 109 here. And when I get in the car, one day I got in the car, I don't know if it was last summer or summer before, and it rang out. It looked like 119 inside the car. So, because when I do go into work, it's not covered parking most of the time. So I'm ending up out there with 120 degrees in the car when I hop back in for the second part. Yeah. So anything else going on in New Jersey?
No, man, literally that's been taking up every morsel of our being here. Of course, the schools are closed. The wife's teaching, so she's trying to figure out her what's going on there. We got 3 people going 3 different directions. So no, nothing other than that. National Signing Day was today.
That's right.
Early signing day really takes the shine off of National Signing Day, but there were some big signings today. We'll get into that.
Yeah, and also when Clemson has already signed, all 19 of their recruits this year. Remember what this day used to be when C.J. Spiller chimed in and when C.J. Spiller signed with Clemson, it used to be a big, kind of like a holiday. You think about taking off of work, but now it's really not the same for Clemson fans. So really interesting. Okay, it's time. Our guest today, Terrence Oglesby, former shooting guard for the Clemson Tigers, professional basketball player for 9 years, I believe, maybe more. Terrence will correct me when we get him to join us. And now a top analyst, and I'm gonna give him some praise. I love the way he analyzes games. I love his videos. And he has his own show, Beyond 22 Feet with Terrence Oglesby. Without further ado, here is Terrence Oglesby. T.O., thank you for joining us.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
thanks for fitting us in. You posted your schedule the other day, and it was like, good Lord, does this guy have 5 minutes for us or what? So,
oh, yeah, of course, man. Anything for you guys. But, no, it's been busy the past couple of weeks. And, the way COVID's treating everything, it's like whenever opportunities pop up, a lot of times people don't have the flexibility that I do when it comes to all this stuff. So I'm jumping on as much as possible and trying to get as much experience doing a bunch of different stuff. So it's a lot of people look at COVID as like, oh crap, I got to stay home. I've looked at it a little bit as an opportunity to where I can kind of expand and learn some more things. So it's actually worked out really well for me that way.
Well, here you go. We were talking about your schedule, and I don't mean to scare you, but you're quite the busy guy here, and we want to touch on all of this eventually during this interview, a few minutes we have with you. But before we get to that, I shot up, of course, I sent out a little video on Twitter of you the other day, and I thought since you were kind enough to join us, we'd give you your 22 seconds.
They won by 2 at home yesterday. All right, let's see what happens. You like Booker. We'll see what happens. Osby is down there with him. Oglesby for 3. Yes! With 2 points.
I mean, you just knew it was going in when it got to him, right?
I knew I was shooting it. Now, the thing is, I didn't really make or miss it, and miss didn't bother me that much. I think that's what kind of made me good in those situations, because if I missed it, it didn't make one bit of difference to me. I just knew that, like, if I had the opportunity, I was capable of making it. So I think that's where I was a little bit different than a lot of guys that play, just because if I missed, I didn't care. I knew how much fun it was to hit it. So if I got open, it was going up.
That shooter's mentality, right?
Yeah.
You're firing it up. And one other thing I wanted to touch on before we get to Clemson basketball, we want to talk a little national basketball with you, NCAA basketball. But I did some research, shockingly, Casey. I did some show research here because we know we're having T.O. on tonight. I noticed, at least on 247, you were the number 3 player in Tennessee in 2007. And I was curious if you remembered who the top 2 were.
I didn't know I was number. I think they had Antoine Wiggins ranked pretty high. I don't know who that was, or I know who he was. We played together, and then Mo Miller, who went to Georgia Tech.
Okay.
He was one of them. Who was the other one? Did they have listed?
Darnell Wilkes.
Darnell Wilkes, who went to Cincinnati.
I don't even know that.
And there's Mo Miller.
So, I think I won. I always got a little bitter when it came to those things, because Mo Miller actually beat me for Mr. Basketball, but he only averaged like 12 points a game in Memphis. But everybody was thinking, well, he's the best player in the city of Memphis. Well, I grew up in the sticks, so for me, like, I took it as a bit of an insult, because it was like, well, I'll go and try to kill anybody. It doesn't matter who it was. It's still, to be honest with you, it still pisses me off a little bit. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but it's still, I have my runner-up for Mr. Basketball. It's right there, over there in my office. I'm in my office right now, and it's an accomplishment because I came in second in voting that year. But it still angers me because I felt like I deserved it.
It's funny too, because that brings up a question to me, lay fan, right? Just the normal everyday fan. You guys are paying attention to that a little bit when you're going through it, or at least you were.
Well, I was. I don't know how much other guys do. I can't speak for them, but for me, like, I was very aware of people that I felt like, well, one, I was better than, and two, it added a little bit extra. I was competitive. I got a little physical a lot of times, probably when I didn't need to, but. That stuff, I'm not sure it bothered me, but it was just another way for me to kind of get going. And when you practice every day and you're playing every day and there's always something going on, sometimes you need a little extra kick to kind of get going. And that was one of them. It still irritates me. Every time we play Georgia Tech, I would be ready to go because Mo was a good player. I mean, don't get me wrong. We're friends now, but we were friends after, because I was not going to be friends with a guy until like way later, because I thought it was a little. I got a little irritated because when you're from the sticks, you fight for everything pretty much. But like, I felt like some of these big city kids, they got the benefit of the doubt a lot quicker than somebody like me did. And, that's where a big chip on my shoulder came from.
Pretty cool. 14 years later, he hasn't forgotten.
Still pissed. It's right there. I'm not
we want it right behind you, right? Next time.
Right there. And I got my Maryland. So I had a buddy, one of my dad's friends. This one right here. That's the Maryland shot. It was from the Washington Post. They clipped it out, and I hang all my Clemson stuff there. And I finally got my Clemson jersey 10 years later, and I just got it framed over at Clemson Frame Shop, and I finally got that frame. So. It's in the other room, though. I don't have that one for you.
All right. We're talking with Terrence Oglesby, former Clemson shooting guard, professional basketball player, and the host of Beyond 22 Feet with Terrence Oglesby. So, Terrence, last night we watched Clemson beat North Carolina. Mm-hmm. We saw some things we hadn't seen in many games. As Casey said, we are lay basketball fans. I know, we're not getting rebounds, we're not making shots. But one of the reasons I appreciate your analysis is that you explain it in a way that me, the bench warmer, the seldom used reserve in high school, can understand what's going to happen or what should happen or why something's not happening. I'll give you an example. Yesterday in your pregame show, you talked about being down on the block or being a few steps away from the block and the difference that made and the dribbling, how many dribbles they would have to take, et cetera. Mm-hmm. Brilliant for somebody like me, a lay basketball fan that knows the basics. So what did Clemson do last night besides make shots? And maybe North Carolina did. Maybe it's that simple. What did they do to turn it around and defeat the Tar Heels last night?
Here's the crazy part about that is they didn't make shots. They still shot sub 45%. Like it's not like this is not a team that's going to shoot astronomical percentages because they play very methodical in their offense and things like that. Coach Brownell likes to call sets for guys, so you're not going to get as many easy shot attempts because the ball's not moving as fast as say like a Carolina is, where they're running up and down and they're able to find opportunities. But they defended. Boy, did they defend, and kind of along the lines of what I was talking about yesterday, they were able to push Carolina's bigs away from the basket. And Hunter Tyson, he missed a couple of games earlier. Like, he had those 2 dunks, and he ended up with 16 points. That's great, whatever. The thing that Hunter Tyson does is he brings you toughness. He brings you energy, and he's the best out-of-area rebounder on your team, and he can get those things. He can get a rebound and take off with it in a hurry, and he brings an added element of toughness to a team where there's a lot of guys that like to shoot it. There's a lot of guys that like to do some of the other things, and I feel kind of bad for Hunter sometimes because I feel like he gets pigeonholed a little bit as a shooter, and that's not really his game. He's a tough, gritty, do-it-all kind of guy. Now, he has shot it great this year, especially compared to his peers, but man, he was really good playing post defense, giving up about 3 or 4 inches pretty much on every matchup throughout the night. And he's doing his work before the ball gets to his guy. And that's so incredibly important whenever you are undersized at the 4 and the 5 position.
There was a stretch last night that he was on the floor every time on the defensive end, every time. And it was just the battling. And I said to somebody, I just said he's going to be black and blue for days after this because he's just working his tail. He's just working his tail off. He reminded me of an old hockey player that would just rough it up, just played ugly, There was a lot of guys last night. One thing I wanted to ask you about Clyde Trapp was finally, I'm saying finally, from a lay fan again perspective, he was getting to the rim. Yeah, and that's where I really thought that Clemson has struggled recently, especially in the couple losses. What were they doing different, or what did you see that they were doing different to allow Clyde to just when he had the ball, you knew he was going to the basket?
They spread it out for him, and a couple other things too that you got to keep in mind. Like John Newman didn't play. John Newman's not necessarily a floor spacer, so sometimes those guys can help a little bit more when John Newman's in the game, especially this year. John Newman for me this season has been kind of. His spark isn't there. I don't know what it is. I don't know if he's got something going on. I've known John for a long time. He's always been like, I can't wait to get there. I can't wait to work. I can't wait to play defense. And it hasn't been there this season. I'm curious as to know what it is. But as far as Clyde's concerned, he's played a lot with Nick Honor out there. He's played a lot with Alex Hemingway. He's played a lot with who else? Alamir Dawes, guys that can hit shots. So you can't help off of those guys as much. And the fact that he's got his athleticism back, like Clyde's first step is pretty impressive. And he is a high-level athlete. And I think last season he was playing at about 65% because he just didn't look like normal Clyde. Normal Clyde is an absurd athlete. And I'd put him right at about 95% right now. But, man, he has been explosive. He's been able to get by that first line, and he's made good decisions when he's gotten there.
Well, and you're right, Terrence. I looked back. They only shot 40% last night overall. So it wasn't a great shooting night. I must have been thinking of those first few minutes where they seemed to be on fire and started out the right way. As I tweeted at halftime, it's nice to not be the team with 21 points at halftime, right? It seems like the last several games – 33, I believe.
Okay, so like we're not.
North Carolina had 33 to 21 at halftime was the score. So and Clemson had 33. We've been reversed, it seems like, for the last month or month and a half. So they didn't shoot very well, but they didn't turn the ball over either. Only had 7 turnovers. Turnovers contagious like they are in football because they seen the games before this. Obviously, they struggled in that realm.
I don't know that turnovers are contagious. I think other factors are. I think shooting's contagious. I think confidence is contagious. I don't know that turnovers are contagious. I think it usually falls on one guy within an offense. You can usually pick out a guy who's not able to either get rid of it in time, and that's what a lot of it comes down to is timing, especially. Football is different than basketball because basketball is so fluid. And it's so timing oriented, and it doesn't really stop. So you can usually – if there's a string of turnovers, somebody's not getting there on time, and it's causing an extra dribble, kind of like what I talked about against for North Carolina. If they have to take that extra dribble, they're not going to be as effective, right? So a lot of those certain things, like usually there's a guy that's a little bit out of sync. There's a guy that hasn't gotten to his spot completely, and those things end up in turnovers. So I'm not sure that's the case. Amir Sims, because he handles the ball a lot, he's turned it over a lot this year, and it's part of it to where, you can live with, I would say if I were a coach, my goal would be under 11.
Okay.
Because if you could go under 11 turnovers, that means you're still getting a good amount of shots up. Do you know how many turnovers they had? I don't have the stats right in front of me. They had 7 for the entire game. So what does that do? Even if they're shooting less than 40%, they're still getting 7 more shots up compared to when they turn it over 20 times. That's 13 less shots that they're getting up there. You hit 40% of 13. My math isn't great, but I'm still assuming you're going to be right at 5 and 12. So that's another 10 points, what have you. So, I mean, that's significant when you're a team like Clemson who relies so much on the defensive end.
Yeah, North Carolina had 17 turnovers. So Clemson didn't turn the ball over. North Carolina did turn the ball over. One thing you mentioned about being ready to shoot, you also mentioned this in your pregame video yesterday, I believe. You're talking about being ready to shoot, and you were just speaking to the timing. Clemson appeared to be ready to shoot, at least the three-pointers, and North Carolina seemed to be a little bit out of sorts. It speaks to the defense, Clemson's defense you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, well, they force things further out. And Carolina, as soon as a shot is made by the other team, they like to get the ball in as quick as possible. Well, what has Clemson been doing all year? They've been jamming that point guard to where whenever he catches it, he can't just turn and run. He's running right into a defender. So they're making Carolina work a little bit more for catches. And whenever that ball pressure is good, Clemson's good because you're pushing the opposite team out maybe another three or 4 feet away from the basket to catch the ball, to be able to initiate offense. And that's significant because, when you're growing up, a lot of kids say, well, I'm in triple threat position. You can catch, shoot, or pass, right? If you push them out another 3 or 4 feet, they're in a double threat. They can pass it or dribble it because they're not shooting it, or at least everybody except for me is not shooting it.
I was hoping you'd say that.
I'm shooting it no matter what. But what I'm saying is like you're able to push them away, so you're limiting options, and that's what's happening. That's the reason Carolina struggled to get into a rhythm.
You had a fantastic interview with Larry Williams on the Clemson Dubcast.
Oh, you like that?
It was wonderful.
We're talking pre-show.
I actually am a loyal watcher of Beyond 22 as well. So I don't want to steal any of the thunder there, but we did want to talk to you a little bit about your career now as an analyst. I know Marty's got a little bit more words, but you're doing all sorts of games wherever. You're doing it the right way. I always wanted to get into sports. They always tell you, you got to get a foot in the door. You're doing that, and you're doing a great job with it. But I'm going to take what you're doing. I know Marty hates my long-winded questions, and change gears.
I'm here as long as you guys want me. So you're good.
I'm changing gears a little bit because you're doing women as well, and we do like to talk Clemson women, or we haven't yet. But I want to know: can Kendall Spray beat you in a three-point shooting contest?
I'll break her arm. No, she's tough, man. Golly, and I was somewhat undersized. I'm 6'2". She's really undersized. She's about 5'4", 5'5". But Coach Butler gives her the same reign that Oliver Purnell gave me. Like, if she's in the vicinity and she feels good, she's allowed to let it go. And it was so funny to listen to Coach Butler talk with Quack and Kelly, I think it was, a couple days ago, a week ago, whatever, what have you. She said, I tell Kendall Spray she's the best shooter on the planet. Like, for a coach to say that to a player, it just it unshackles you. And I've heard a lot of people say, well, coach kills your confidence. And a lot of times I'm like, whatever. A coach can take away confidence. I'm not sure that you can build it. But the fact that Amanda Butler is so on board with her taking whatever shot, she's completely free to do whatever she wants. And she's a lot of fun. I'll be honest, I don't know much about the girls' game, at least up until this year. I just didn't. I will tell you this way, it's a different game. And not only the objective is still the same, score more points, but how you get to those points, it's a lot different. The girls still take a lot of mid-range jumpers. There's still a lot of, you can tell, tendencies a lot quicker with girls than you can with boys.
Well, I noticed a couple of those girls too, like Delicia Washington and Gabby Elliott, I believe.
Yeah, Gabby Elliott's a good sell. Like
Amanda,
a high-level athlete. Oh, Gabby
she's recruiting well.
Yeah, she's getting them. And then that's not even talking about Danae McNeil, who's a 5-star girl out of South Carolina. Like, she's getting 5-star kids. And, like, it's starting to kind of turn around. Now, I will say this, parity in the girls' game is not what it is in the guys' game. So, like, the top 20 kids are all going to the same schools. But Amanda's starting to get, like, the 30 through the 65-ish girls.
We'll take it.
Like, that you take that any day of the week. And, so you could be flirting with the middle of the conference, middle to top of the conference every year. She's good, man. And there was a great article by the Wall Street Journal talking about how NBA teams during their offseason were trying to figure out zones. You know who they called?
Amanda Butler.
Amanda Butler.
No way.
Jay Hernandez. Yeah, so Jay Hernandez, who's the G League coach for the Greensboro Swarm, they interviewed him, and they're like, Amanda Butler's one of the brightest minds in the game, men or women. And that's and she's big time, man. I really like Coach B anyway, because she her son Nehemiah's in my daughter's daycare. So I run into her pretty much every time I take the kids, and she's taking her and she's taking Nehemiah to school. Like, I run into either her or Jana. I run into them all the time. Like, they are high quality people, and she knows who, man. Tennessee people, buddy. All right. Amanda Butler, Terrence Oglesby. We're going to bring with it, baby. Let's go.
Terrence, talking about your analyst career, I heard your very first game a few years ago, and it was like, Terrence is going to be on the analyst role in this game. I was like, oh boy, here we go. And he's going to talk about his day and him and him and him. You did not. From the very first game, it's natural to you, right? I mean, I don't want to say you don't work at it. Obviously you do. You come on this show, you go on anybody that asks. You work 6 days a week, sometimes more. So when I say it comes natural, I don't mean to say you don't put in the work. I think you do. That's obvious, and it comes across when you're on the air, whether that be TV or radio or whatever. But it just seems to come natural. You have a way of explaining the game, as I was talking to you earlier, that is easier for the layperson who didn't play a high level of basketball to understand, and it just seems like it comes natural to you.
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, going back to the first part of what you were saying, whenever Terrence is going to talk about whatever, it's no longer about me, and like I understand that, and I'm okay with that. I'm actually happy about that, because now I get to appreciate the game for what it is, and then I get to teach the game for what it is, right? And so that's kind of another avenue for me to do that. You want to know how that happened? How I ended up calling those games? So
Absolutely.
I was a communications major in college. I thought like maybe I'd like to do that because I just like talking hoop, and you know, I am a pretty good coach. I feel like I could have done that, but it was just taking too much time away from my family. I had my father passed away suddenly, yada yada yada. But so I had to be home for my family. So I kind of started to get back into it. But the first game, they actually asked Terrell McIntyre if he wanted to do it. And I was a volunteer assistant. I was working on scout team. Basically, those 2 years that I was working with Brownell, anything they needed, that would be me, right? So they asked me. I was like, sure, that'd be fun. And I went and did halftime with the girls' game one time with Qualk and Kelly when she was still doing radio. And I was like, yeah, we'll be fine. I'm just talking hoop. Like, it's not really. And I was already helping out with scouting reports and everything for the guys. And you want to talk about in-depth scouting reports? See a Brownell scouting report. I got them up here. They've got they're 35 pages long. Like, so all my work was done. And so I was like, yeah, sure, I'll go on. So long story short, now every time Beret's out of town or something like that, they call me and I go straight to it. But to go to what you were saying, you know, it's not about me. And I think in today's, I hate to get all, you know what I mean, but today everybody talks about themselves a lot. They want to hear you talk about their kid. It's about the kid. It's not about you. It's about well, that's my niece or that's my nephew. They were like, I want to hear what the announcer says about my niece or my nephew. I want to hear what the announcer says about my team. And I don't want to fall into the trap of talking about myself. And I really want people to understand the game. And there's a lot of nuance to basketball. I'm aware of that, but I feel like it's tough. I'm in the state of South Carolina. It's a football state. And I realize that. I'm not naive to that fact. But at the same time, there are certain things that there's certain little portions that you can teach to where it's directly applicable to the game right away.
Absolutely.
So like, for example, the thing with the post player, whenever I did Georgia Tech, you have to keep Mike DeVoe and you have to guard the ball. Or what's going to happen? They're going to draw help and they're going to kick, and they've got shooters all over the place. What happens? Alvarado gets into the lane. DeVoe goes 6 for 6 from 3. Everybody's ready to have a heart attack. All the boo birds are coming out. And it's like, but it comes down to one simple thing. Could Clemson guard the ball that game against Georgia Tech? And they couldn't. Against Carolina, could they push the post players out because they're not going to be as effective? They're still going to have some success, but they're not going to be as effective. That's going to be significant. So that gives the viewer something to watch in the game going forward, to where it might not be the nuance of how to get around or how to do correct positioning and all that stuff, but it gives you something to look for that you know that's going to matter. And that's kind of what I want to do. I want to be a resource for the common fan. And because I could really get technical if I wanted to. I could rewind a clip 7, 8, 9, 10 times in a game, and this game will last 6 hours, and I'd be fine with it. I'd be eating as I was talking, like it'd be fine. But like, I understand that, and I want to keep it simple. I think it's important for the fan to understand what's going on, and I don't want to. There's going to be times where guys ask me questions like you guys and things of that nature, and it's going to happen on air. I'm going to have to talk about things on air, but I want to keep the main thing, and the main thing are the guys playing.
Well, I think if you were to ever do a game with Reese Davis, he's gonna talk about you, because he mentioned you last night a couple times during the broadcast. So, but I know you talked a little bit about this in Larry's thing, but there was something that Marty and I talked about when we listened to you, is that you're prepared, and it's easy to tell when people aren't prepared. And we don't have to get into the story you were telling on that show, but man, oh man, Marty and I were listening to, it might have been a Clemson game. I think Roy Philpott was doing the play-by-play, and his partner didn't even know his name.
Didn't know his name.
like simple stuff, and so not to blow smoke, but you are a refreshing voice. Plus, you're one of our own, right? So you start a step up because you're one of us. You're a Clemson guy, but man, you're doing a great job, and we enjoy listening to you. Truly,
I almost feel like it's disrespectful to the audience if you don't do your homework. Like, to me, that drives me nuts. Like, there was one, and this is terrible to even say, but Jason Benetti was doing a game with Bill Walton, and and Bill Walton didn't even know who he was talking to because he's not there. And Benetti has, I think, cerebral palsy or something. He has something, and they got to talking about COVID, and Bill Walton's like, "Have you ever had any health problems?" And Benetti's like, "Yeah, I mean, I don't walk the same as a lot of people." And Bill Walton didn't do his homework, and he made himself look like a jack, on live television. And I think it's disrespectful to the process. I think that's a big part. And I'm very process driven at this part of my life, to where, like, I understand what goes into it. I want my work to hold up compared to, say, the director of production, which would be Rick Bagby on Sunday whenever I do the girls game against Boston College. I need to be as prepared as he is. I need to be as prepared as everybody else that's in there. And for me to be arrogant enough to think that people would just listen to me for the sake of listening to me would be wrong. And it's not going to hold weight in the long term. So, and my work ethic when I played was really good. A lot of people talked about it, and it was noted, and it is transferred over. I mean, I watched film on ETSU and Furman's girls today for about 3 hours, just because I don't know SoCon women's basketball. So I want to make sure that I know it before I go there. And it is what it is. My scouting reports are ready. That's not till Friday. I have my show tomorrow. So I just want to make sure that it's all in order, to where, one, I don't look like a doofus, and two, like the girls' parents and high school coaches and middle school coaches, everybody who keeps up, I want to do right by them too, because there's a lot of effort that goes into these games, and there's a lot of effort that goes into these people as well. And I think they deserve somebody that's prepared.
That's a great way.
Yep. We are speaking with Terrence Oglesby, the proprietor now of Beyond 22 Feet Basketball's podcast, a show on Facebook. I highly, highly recommend you check it out. Thursday nights, right, Terrence?
Thursday night, 7:00. It'll be tomorrow. I do it with Mark Childress' son, Faxon, who is a very intelligent young individual. He's got a little Mark Packer in him from an attitude standpoint, because he'll pretty much let it fly off his tongue real quick. I really like the kid. I think he's really bright. I'm using it, one, to work on things, to teach, but at the same time, I'm using it also to kind of be in front of the camera and learn nuance and posture and do all that, because you want to talk about film study whenever you were playing. I'm trying to do the same thing when I'm doing all these things, so I can improve constantly. So,
right.
So that's kind of, it's one of the reasons I did it. And another byproduct, I don't have any sponsorships. I'm not making any money doing it. I'm paying to use the studio, not much, but
right.
I'm paying to use the studio. I'm thinking long-term with this stuff, and I really want to gather as much information as possible.
No, it's great. And when we appreciate you not wearing a sport coat, because I know you look very professional when you're doing that show. I told Marty, I said, make sure you tell him no sports coats tonight. Wear hats and T-shirts, and we try to wear different funny T-shirts or fun T-shirts every week. So that's our little gimmick.
Got the James Madison on, man. There's a kid from Dorman that was PJ Hall's high school teammate that's now at James Madison, and he was just named Conference Rookie of the Week. Justin Amati. Wow. 6'5" man, plays for the Bulldogs up at James Madison.
The Royal Dukes. The Royal Dukes. There's a story behind this shirt, but we'll save it for our next one.
Terrence will have to watch the next show to get the story. Terrence, back to your point about of not being about you. And I don't know, you said some things in there that strike me, whatever sport it is, football, basketball, baseball. Too many times it seems like the production guys want to focus on something off the field, off the court, wherever, right? We're looking at next Tuesday's show, or what's coming up on Tuesday, or the game coming up, after this game. In the actual game you're trying to watch is in a corner or a part of the screen. Now, I'm not saying you have anything to do with the production, but I have yet to meet anybody who said they like that, or They want, they want to know more about the game next Tuesday when Clemson's playing. I just don't get it. Like you said, to me, that's kind of disrespectful to the game that's actually being played that you tuned in to watch.
It's in-house advertising. That's all it is. They got to you got to watch that game too. I mean, it's you got to use Crest toothpaste. Same kind of thing, but it's on their own network. You'll notice networks never advertise for a game that's not going to be on their network. So it's the exact same thing. It's advertising. It's letting you know, hey, this game's coming up. We'd really like you to watch it. This is why you'd like to watch it. And to be honest with you, I've been back there in production. A lot of times it's only about 60 seconds. So even though it is annoying, it's only 45, 60 seconds. And they're just trying to let everybody know that, hey, 9 o'clock on Saturday, Duke and North Carolina is playing, even though neither one of them are going to make the tournament.
And that's a great segue because that was one of my questions. Clemson, NCAA tournament. Yes, no, maybe so.
Right now?
It seemed like after last night you were a little bit flummoxed about this basketball team.
I'm lost, man. Like it's a wild ordeal. I thought they were playing so poorly. I didn't think they played well against Louisville. I thought they still lacked energy against Louisville. If they defend and they play with energy, they're a tournament team. And not only they're a tournament team, they're probably a 4, 5, 6 seed. I think, it's difficult to stay with it. You got to keep in mind too, not to make excuses, but a lot of people are going through this right now. And, middle of January to middle of February, those are the dog days of ACC season because you're hitting games 6 through about 13, 14. You're kind of figuring out where you're going to be. You're trying to, and then you're not really positioning for seeding. It's just like, oh, another one. Oh, another one. Oh, another one. And, there's a lot of teams doing stuff like that. But, if they're able to guard at a high level, they're a tournament team. I was just kidding about Carolina. I think they are a tournament team. I think they're going to end up being there. Duke is intriguing. However, they did actually what I talked to Kwok and Kelly about this. I was like, I don't know why they're playing through Matthew Hurt. They should be playing through Jalen Johnson. And they started doing that and they started winning. And now they're playing really well because Matthew Hurt, the shot's going up. Matthew Hurt is like me at 6'10". Like he's not passing. There's no dribbles. Like there might be a fake or a ball fake, one dribble, something, but he's shooting the ball. Jalen Johnson's the other way to where like he's not a great shooter, but in order for him to be effective, he's got to get downhill and he's got to dribble. So, but the best part of his game is his passing, not necessarily his scoring. So at least if you play through him, you'll at least get 2 passes before the offense is over, right? So that's kind of how I feel about that whole thing. I mean, Matthew Hurt's a good player. He's a great scorer, but he needs to be somebody you play through at the final 10 seconds of the shot clock, not the first 10 seconds of the shot clock.
Interesting analysis. My final question, I don't know what Casey has for you, but my last question, I'm going to give you Gonzaga and Baylor or the field. Which one takes the national championship?
That's tough.
He's going to hold you to this too, by the way. He's going to mention.
The thing that scares me about Gonzaga, and they could just get beat in the Elite Eight or something, and I'll tell you why. They do defend, and they really guard too. Like they don't they really get on the ball and they guard, and they can score everywhere. The thing that worries me about Gonzaga, and it's always worried me about Gonzaga, is they're playing in the freaking West Coast. Like if they were playing in the Pac-12 and they were seeing big bodies every night, it would be different. But then all of a sudden you start throwing high majors at these guys. And I know they've killed people at the beginning of conference season. That's always the case with Gonzaga. It's a different level of play now. Like having to play Georgia Tech on a Saturday than having to go play, Pepperdine. And Pepperdine has some good players, but I mean.
That's a high school gym.
Yeah, it's a high school gym. It's in Malibu, so don't hate too bad.
I know.
I'll take it.
Yeah, that place is sweet. One of my buddies played there, who I played on the Norwegian national team with. He played at Pepperdine. And he's like, yeah, you need to come up check out campus. I was like, sure, we'll come up there. It is in overlooks, son.
And it overlooks. Yeah. My dad would not let me visit because he said I wouldn't ever leave.
Yeah, that's an incredible place. They had to live like about 30 miles away because like he said there's no way we can pay for rent because Dwayne Wade lives right there. So I was like, yeah, so that's going to be rough. But no, I think having to stand up to competition, I think that's a big thing. Baylor could do it. Baylor could do it because that might be the best defensive team in the country. There's two teams in the Big 12 that in the Big 10 that I really like, and they've been sliding a little bit, but I still like them. I like Iowa because they can shoot it, and they can shoot over the top. I know Gonzaga already beat them, and I really like I really like Illinois.
Interesting.
I like Illinois. I know they've got 5 losses. I know they just had to pull off a tough one at Indiana last night. Ayo Dosunmu is somebody you can get it to and say, hey, go make a play. If he gets hurt, Andre Curbelo, as nuts as he is, to me, he's J.J. Barea 2.0. He's a little bigger. He shoots it. He splits ball screens the exact same way. They do a lot of stuff very similar. It's kind of creepy. But they've got shooters around them, and they've got the bigs to really defend other bigs throughout the country. And they can either go super big or they can go small with Cockburn at the 5. I like them because they have a guy who can get you one, and they're also going to defend at a high level, even though they've got some losses. I think the Big Ten is the toughest conference in the country this year. I don't think it's close. Big 12's fine. ACC's it's been hit or miss. It's been the most nuts year as far as basketball is concerned in ACC history. I mean, Duke smacks Clemson by 27, then goes down and loses at Miami after they start. And Miami, mind you, started 5 guards. So, like, it's
only have 5 or 6 scholarship players too.
Yeah, and they lost an all-freshman caliber player in Matt Cross, who I was a big fan of. It's 6'7" shooter, about 42% from 3. Tough as nails. He just didn't get along, so they lost him. McGusty hasn't played because of hamstring. Chris Likes hasn't been healthy. Harlan Beverly can't shoot. Like, they've got kind of a hodgepodge of dudes, and then they beat Duke at home. It's like it's insane, and there's no rhyme or reason for anything that's happening. Georgia Tech, they go up and they play Louisville at Louisville. I know Georgia Tech's going to play zone the whole game because they're going to have a hard time staying in front of Carlick Jones, and Louisville can't shoot. Well, Louisville beats them by 20. Like, I don't know. Like, this year has been insane, and the top is thin, the middle's fat, and the bottom's a little bit bigger than we anticipated. But
it's kind of just like me.
Yeah,
thin, the middle's thick,
the top, and just balloon out, baby.
Okay, so what I'm hearing from you is we'll make a deal. We'll give you a do-over if you come back, if you have time, tournament time, and talk about the NCAA tournament with us. Yeah. We'll let you make your choice then.
Yeah, let's do it. No, if I had to pick right now, I'd probably pick those 2 at this point. I mean, but then again, 3 weeks ago, I said Clemson was the best team in the ACC. So look how far out.
They were.
And I said that too. I was like, hey, I'm not saying that this is going to be the case in February or March, but right now, Clemson and Virginia Tech are the best 2 teams in the conference. Now, I actually think North Carolina will be there. Wow. I know I'm probably crazy. I think, Caleb Love's figuring it out. He's still kind of forcing the issue. Florida State and Virginia are obviously good, but I think Carolina's going to be right there come March.
Man, those bigs are big, man. I mean, good Lord. When Roy made a little adjustment where he had 4 guards or 4 guys up top, and it was almost one-on-one in the paint, and Brownell really had no answer initially to it, I thought that was brilliant. And Hunter Tyson, that was that stretch that Hunter Tyson was one-on-one with who's the big that couldn't hit free throws last night. Sharp. He was just getting absolutely manhandled, but it was so smart. And I'm like, we need an adjustment on defense here. Yeah. I don't know how, and he did.
Well, Brad talked a lot about double team recognition last night, like who you can double off of and who you can't. Like there was a possession where Omax Prosper doubled off of Kerwin Walton. Can't do that. But there was also a possession 2 times later where it was like Amir Sims was guarding Sharp and they tried the high-low, and he played so far back off that he was able to deflect the pass. So, like, this is what's going to make Carolina dangerous here next year is they're going to have all those guys back. Maybe not Caleb Love, but I would assume so. They're going to have all those guys back. What's the guy's name? Garrison Brooks is no longer going to be there. I think he limits you at this point. And you're going to have Walker Kessler in there with Day'Ron Sharp if he stays. Then Walker can really step out and shoot it. and then you're going to have to step out there, and they're going to be really spaced out, and really going to be a problem. Carolina's coming back. It's just going to take a little bit of time, and it takes a while to learn the Carolina break and do it right. Like, it's not an easy pickup for a lot of guys.
It's getting it out of the hoop and running up and down the court. We could talk all day basketball, man.
Well, I'll say this. I saw Baylor in between the commercials last night, the Clemson game. There's a little bit of a lag there. They started a few minutes earlier. So Clemson halftime. Baylor had a 7-point lead at halftime. Texas erased it really quick with a couple threes. I went and got a sandwich and came back, and Baylor was up by like 15. So those guys can shoot the ball as far as I can tell. And they look like the real deal from, again, a layman. So we'll talk about that.
So well. They should have so well. I mean, they're one of the few. They don't. Who's their superstar? Like, who's Baylor's superstar?
Yeah.
Like, Maceo Teague's good, but he played at UNC Asheville 3 years ago. So like they don't have one. They just play incredibly well together, and they're all big body dudes and guards, and it's they're interesting, man. They're interesting. But Texas is intriguing too now. Like, they've got a lot of athletes. They've got Greg Brown, who's really talented, who can score.
Great story.
They've got 3 guards that are really tough. Andrew Jones, who came back from cancer, he's averaging like 15 points a game. How tough is that guy? And not to mention, I talked to Shaka the other day. He recruited me at Clemson. So, like, it's funny how all that stuff works out. I'm so happy for him because he's finally rolling. But, man, he just might have run into a buzzsaw with Baylor because there's just so much right now.
Yeah, that's one of the bigger stories of the year. Shaka Smart with hair, right?
Yeah, I sent him a text. I was like, "You got to be kidding me! You're my inspirations. Just come on, you're my inspirations." And he just hit me back with the LOL. I'm like,
one day, Shaka, I'm gonna be like you.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Terrence, we really appreciate your time, man. We know you're busy. Thank you so much. We hope to have you back on around tournament time if you can fit us in.
Absolutely. If I'm around and I got time, you guys got me. So thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Anytime. Terrence Oglesby.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Beyond 22 podcast. Terrence Oglesby. Thanks, Terrence. All right, Case. That was a great interview.
Good Lord, that was fun.
Man, I haven't talked basketball like that since I don't know if I ever have, actually.
I really want to put him up against the most knowledgeable basketball people around. You could literally listen to him all day long. He just knows what he's talking about. The names pop off. I'm thinking of who's on Baylor, and he's got 3 names already. I'm like, oh yeah, like he's just so good, so quick.
He
awesome.
obviously loves the game. I mean, obviously, and he's not bitter about 14 years ago not getting Mr. Tennessee basketball, is he? A competitor in that guy, right?
What a great story that was too, though. I mean, it was just the whole talking to him. Like I said, I forgot we were recording because we're just sitting here talking.
What's the funny part is he didn't even know one of the guys. Who's that? Who's that guy? One of the top 3. There was 2 guys ahead of him. He didn't know one of them, and the other guy he was mad at. Hilarious. All right. Let's talk a little bit of college football here, Casey. I didn't know anything about signing day. You got any details of what happened? Anything big happened? I was out of pocket. I know. Believe it or not, I was busy at work today.
Whoa. Who does that? Not a whole lot. There was only one 5-star running back, was actually between Alabama and Oklahoma. Ended up choosing, surprisingly, Alabama. And 24/7, I had his name, but I forget. Wheaton is his last name, a running back. 24/7 put it as now that's the best Alabama class ever in numbers-wise. I know, it's just like last year or the year before or the year before that.
Well, this is the new thing, right? Everything's the best team ever, the best recruiting class ever. Old man here, get off my lawn. Next year there'll be a new best, right?
Of course.
But that's a Texas kid, I believe, right?
Yes, he was. Garland, Texas. Okay. Oh, look at Nelson. Nelson's retiring Monday. Congratulations, buddy.
Cool. Nelson, congratulations. I hope to be there one day in the not too distant future.
I got about 35 more years to go.
Yeah, but my 35 years are on the other side. So, that's what I try and tell Parker. I try and say, well, yes, I did it. It's just I've already done it, when he says, why do I have to do this? Because I did it for 32 years. Now you're going to do it, son.
That's right.
All right. Clemson, schedule came out last week, right after the podcast, of course. They time all this stuff, Casey, so we don't have a chance to talk about it.
Make us work.
Okay, we know Georgia's September 4th in Charlotte. We're counting the days already. And then South Carolina State, Georgia Tech at home, NC State on the road, Boston College at home, Syracuse on a Friday night on the road, and we'll talk about that one. Pittsburgh on the road 8 days later, Seminoles at home on October 30th, Louisville November 6th on the road, UConn and Wake Forest at home, and finish it up in Columbia, where nobody really wants to be. I don't have much of a takeaway from this schedule except can't wait for the Georgia game, and I hate Friday night college football. I don't care whether it's home or away or in the loudest stadium known to man, which is the Carrier Dome. I just don't like playing on Friday night. I think it's Bush League. Now, more games are happening on Friday night. We know that. The Pac-12 is. Brandon Rank pushed back on this a couple years ago, my friend that works at TigerNet, and said, other teams play. Let me ask you a question. Does Alabama play on a Friday night?
Never.
Yeah. Does Alabama play on Thursday night?
Never.
Yeah. Thanks. That's all I needed. So I realize Clemson is the standard bearer for the ACC. They have to have them on prime time. This Syracuse game, it's been on prime time several times recently. I get it. I know it. Like Terrence was saying, it's in-house advertising. I'm not stupid. I know why it's there. That doesn't mean I have to like it. That's my only two takeaways. I can't wait for Georgia, and I hate Syracuse being on a Friday night, and I think we're looking at 11-1 or 12-0.
Yeah, I don't. Like John Chancey just said there, Syracuse on a Friday night. I remember exactly where I was. It was one of those moments that Friday night. I was downtown Greenville, South Carolina, at Buffalo Wild Wing, one of those places, one of those wing places on Main Street. But why that game sticks out, I'm not sure. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of it either. And that's a change recently because when Clemson was ranked 18th, 25th, just hoping to get into the top 25. Those games were fun. As a student, it was fantastic. Thursday night games back in the day, we would even drive and go to Georgia Tech for Clemson games. I went to a Virginia Tech Clemson game. I believe it was on a Thursday night, but that was like the marquee game when I was in school. Now that Clemson's good and the cream of the crop and probably one of the top 3 teams in the country perennially, yeah, there's no real reason to put them on a Friday night. Maybe you're trying to get eyes to Syracuse. I don't know. I don't know what they're trying to do. I know the ACC had a deal with those Thursday, Friday night games, so maybe it's a little bit of that. The only Friday night game that I like is BC, mostly because I go, and it's usually the red bandana game, which if you get an opportunity to go, it's definitely worthwhile, but it's usually very cold. As far as Clemson's schedule, Georgia worries me just because of their firepower on offense. They're losing a lot on the defensive side of the ball, but they're just going to reload. They recruit well. You think that they're going to be coached up. You're not exactly sure because they're always in the top 3 in recruiting. JT Daniels back, Zamir White's back. I believe George Pickens is back. They have some dogs on the offensive side, so that'll be fun to watch that game. DJU's first game against his counterpart from California, JT Daniels. SC State, come on. NC State has Devin Leary back, hopefully. Phil Yurkovich is back from Boston College. Kenny Pickett's back from Pitt. Mackenzie Milton at Florida State. Florida State's the one game that's completely unknown, right? We have no idea what they're going to be. They've had, I think, at last count, 74 guys from the transfer portal that they got.
All 1,232 that were in there now.
Every time I looked, Jamie Robinson from South Carolina, Mackenzie Milton from UCF. I just don't know what Florida State's going to be. We have no idea, just based on if it's from last year, they're going to be trash. But if it's this year, then you don't know who's even on the team. Louisville's another one. You're not really sure what you're going to have. You think with Scott Satterfield they're going to be better this year, and then otherwise it kind of wraps up UConn, Wake, South Carolina. That's my reaction to that.
Well, Casey,
I hope you're right, JP. I hope you're right on that.
We haven't been able to unite our viewers, listeners, people in the Facebook group, but I have not seen one comment that said, looking forward to that Friday night game. I think we've done it. We've united the people.
We figured it out, huh?
Yeah, I agree with JP, by the way, that Clemson blows Florida State. They're going to have to prove it to me. It's been enough years, right? It's been 20 years, it seems like, since they've been good. I know that's not true because they just won a national championship not too long ago, but it's been a long time since Florida State is good. And let me tell you, when they're bad, they are really, really bad. They are lose to Louisiana, Lafayette, or whoever bad. So
It's week 8. This is the only concern. You know, it's like playing South Carolina at the end of the year. By then, you think that they have their stuff together. Recently for South Carolina, the wheels have fallen off already, so there's no fixing it. But week 8 at Florida State, or Florida State at home, maybe they have something figured out at that point. I don't know. I'm hopeful. You know me. I'm the pessimistic, always finding the diamond in the rough and whatever team we're playing. But I'll defer to JP Priester and you on this one, and won't jump off the cliff quite yet.
Yeah, don't overlook South Carolina State. I believe that's Kevron's favorite team, and a team I grew up watching Willie Jeffrey show when I was a kid. That tells you how old I am. Really,
I believe I'll be in the house if hopefully, God willing, we're able to go to games. I think I'm going to be in the house for that SC State game. So,
hey, JP just made a good point. Dabo's not going to forget what happened this year. We might not see Will Sweeney that day. That's all I'm saying.
Now we might see Drew. Yeah. John Chansey brings up a good point. I think so too. Year 2 with Jeff Hafley, I think that BC is going to be good. You know they're going to have dogs on the defensive line, and their offensive line's always big. They're going to have a running back, and Yurkovich is back, and he proved last year that he could torch Clemson on offense for the most part for about 3 quarters.
For about 3 quarters. All right, Casey. Speaking of JP Priester, he's up next week. We're going to have him on. JP, we're telling you what we want to talk about. We want to talk about recruiting, and I want to talk some Clemson baseball because when we talk to you next week, we'll be like a week and a half out. So study up on the Clemson baseball, study up on the recruiting, and I think, it'll be about a week and a half from that quarterback that you promised me. He'll be signing a week and a half from next Wednesday when you talk to us. So, maybe you can give us a little inside intel there. On Mr. Simpson out of Martin, Tennessee.
No pressure following T.O. either. No pressure.
No pressure following T.O. We were going to get your breakdown on basketball like T.O. gave us. My head was spinning after a while. As I said, I'm just a high school basketball player, a failed high school basketball player at that. And I'm watching his show, and he's telling me that this is the spacing. It makes all the difference in the world. Makes sense to me. Then he starts talking. I'm going, what am I supposed to do here? How am I supposed to react to this? But a lot of fun to have T.O. on. Beyond 22 Feet podcast, Terrence Oglesby. Check it out on Facebook. Great show. Learn a lot about basketball. I've learned a lot in the last couple of weeks. I probably had forgotten some since high school. So a lot of fun. Casey, would you say the thank yous while I get ready to take us out of here?
I sure will. Thanks again to Terrence Oglesby for joining us. 2 famed former Clemson basketball alums yucking it up. He's famed. I'm not. Thanks to everyone in our Facebook group. Thanks to Nelson Wilhite, of course, and congratulations on his upcoming retirement. He's helped his support everybody on Seldom Used Reserve, Sluggo, and the Chop and Beef, which records tomorrow night. Each and everyone who listens, likes, and shares our show, we appreciate it. On behalf of Marty, Seldom Used Reserve, Coleman, I have the beef. Casey the Beef Regan, thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Chop and Beef, Thursday nights. It'll be out Friday morning.
I think that sounds pretty good.